Okay, good morning. My name is Mike Lazorchik. I am the Design Section Chief for Pennsylvania's Bureau of Abandoned Mine Reclamation Central Office.
And my name is Jeremy Byler, and I'm the Project Planning and Development Section Chief in the same office. I'm also serving as the project designer for this particular project, which was originally assigned to me when I previously served in the capacity of Senior Civil Engineer in the design section under Mike. Thank you for joining us as we discuss the design of an AMLER project during COVID-19 Torred coal mine.
Now, the earliest record of mining activity at the site of the Torred mine in Tarentum, Pennsylvania was in 1850. Known later as the Avenue Mine, it was operated by Allegheny Steel and mined by the Leechburg Mining Company. Now, the coal extracted during this period was used locally at the Allegheny Steel plant in Breckenridge. Now, Torred's late founder, Ira Wood, acquired the mine in 1964 and provided coal to the Tarentum Power, PPG, and Allegheny County warehouse. He then decided he wanted to share the history of coal mining and began plans to create one of the most unique Pittsburgh attractions. After modifying the coal mine, Torred Mine and Museum was officially opened as a Pittsburgh attraction in 1970. Now, the Torred Mine project will address 400 feet of dangerous high wall as a Category A AMLER project. Now, this project will reclaim abandoned dangerous high walls with heights of up to 25 feet in an area with a collapsed mine entry. The project will protect the public from the hazards of the dangerous high wall while preserving and enhancing the education value of the site. Now, Torred currently receives approximately 9,000 visitors per year. 4,000 of those visitors are students. Now, the use of AMLER funds for reclamation will allow Torred Mine and Museum to fund other maintenance projects at the facility. Now, work at the site includes installing fencing around a strip mine pit, installing a soil nail wall along a portion of a high wall as a permanent retaining wall for rock slope stabilization, replacing existing failing gravity and timber lagging retaining walls with a reinforced concrete cantilever retaining walls, including a rockfall drape, fencing off the steep spoil slope, and ancillary stormwater management improvements. Now, this presentation will explore the details of the design of this project and discuss the obstacles COVID-19 created for the design of the project and for the business of Torred Mine and Museum. Now, while it is well known Pittsburgh's steel industry helped shape the city, the region, and the country, few think about the raw materials that are required to power such large factories. With a variety of raw materials that are needed to fuel the plant, coal was one of the most important. Now, coal is usually associated with the anthracite fields of northeastern PA, but there were and still are coal mines in western Pennsylvania. Now, room and pillar mines have been active in the bituminous coal fields since the late 1700s. Bituminous coal was first mined in Pennsylvania at Coal Hill, now Mount Washington, just across the Monongahela River from the city of Pittsburgh. Now, the coal was extracted from the drift mines in the Pittsburgh coal seam, and as you can see in the early days, it was loaded on boats for transportation. By 1830, the city of Pittsburgh consumed more than 400 tons per day of bituminous coal for domestic and light industrial use. Now, the coal mined in southwestern PA was often turned into coke, which would then power the steel mills. Now, one of these coal mines was the Avenue Mine near Tarentum, in the northeastern corner of Allegheny County. Now, Ira R. Woody Wood closed the mine in the late 1960s, despite there being a large amount of upper Freeport coal still in the ground. Now, having spent much of his life underground, Mr. Wood believed those on the surface should understand and appreciate the working conditions, techniques, and service provided by the Western Pennsylvania coal miners. Now, Ira Wood's nephew was quoted as saying, what he really wanted to do was preserve the history of mining for future generations. Mining is mostly a thing of the past, and in this area, now many of us can trace our family history back to the mines. Now, since opening in 1970, Torred Mine and Museum has helped educate thousands, and since then, over 1 million coal mine tours have been given by experienced miners and staff.
So as mentioned before, the Torrid Mine project will address 400 feet of dangerous high wall as a Category A AMLER project. The Abandoned Mine Land Economic Revitalization, or AMLER grant program, which was formerly known as the AML pilot, was first established in 2016 to provide grant funding for coal mine redevelopment projects that spur economic development. For a little context here, here's an oblique view of the site. You can see that the mine and museum structure is right here near the top of a one-to-one slope that's about 100 feet tall. Then there's a 25-foot high wall upslope of that structure with additional buildings up here and a pretty large drainage area that comes down to it. So just for context, that's what the site looks like. This project will reclaim an abandoned dangerous high wall with heights up to 25 feet and an area with a collapsed mine entry by construction of a soil nail wall. Included in this will be an improved retaining wall to protect a cabin that's part of the Torrid Museum. The project will also involve rebuilding an additional retaining wall that is currently failing, installing permanent rock protection on a portion of the high wall with a rockfall drape, installing fences for safety reasons around spoil slope and a strip mine area, and ancillary stormwater improvements. So these two photos show where the high wall will be cut back to construct a new wheelchair accessible ramp at a milder slope, and a soil nail wall will be constructed on the remaining high wall. The existing unreinforced concrete masonry unit utility room at the bottom of the paved slope here will need to be demolished to facilitate the construction. The utility room wall immediately adjacent to and parallel with the high wall recently collapsed due to a surcharge loading during a rainstorm event, further highlighting the need for this project to mitigate risks associated with this dangerous high wall. This photo shows another section of the high wall that will be covered with a rockfall drape to protect against falling rocks. And this photo shows the existing failing gravity retaining wall that will be replaced with a reinforced concrete cantilever retaining wall. This cantilever wall system was selected because there's actually, in the retained zone of this wall, a septic tank that has pretty poor backfill around it. And it's generally not a good idea to have a gravity retaining wall with poor backfill behind it and septic tanks. So that's why it'll need to be a cantilever wall to accommodate that. And it couldn't be something more economic like a MSE wall, mechanically stabilized earth with geogrid. This photo shows where Torrid visitors gather to board the coal cars for a tour of the mine. The high wall in this area, right here, is deteriorating and causing subsidence under the 18th century cabin, which was moved to this location in the 1970s, and is used to show a short film about coal at the museum. A reinforced concrete cantilever retaining wall will be constructed towards the rear of the cabin to prevent further subsidence. The cabin's shallow foundation will require underpinning with piles to facilitate the safe construction and to reduce overall surcharge loading on the finished wall.
What is COVID-19? It's an illness caused by the SARS-CoV-2, which was termed COVID-19 by the World Health Organization, an acronym derived from the coronavirus disease 2019. The name was chosen to avoid stigmatizing the virus's origin in terms of population, geography, or animal associations. Now, what does COVID-19 stand for? The CO is for corona, VI for virus, D for disease, 19 for 2019, the year it was first identified. Now, about the same time the design team was preparing to visit the Tor Ed mine site in Tarentum, PA, the Allegheny County Health Department confirmed its first 2 COVID-19 cases in Allegheny County in March of 2020. Now, the Tor Ed project was officially hindered as the Commonwealth of PA employees had to consult the COVID-19 early warning monitoring system dashboard to determine the rate of new COVID-19 cases in the current 7-day period versus the previous 7-day period. Now, depending on the rate of new cases, employees could be banned from traveling to that county. Now, Allegheny County was one of the counties that was seeing a high rate of new cases. Now, it was hit or miss trying to schedule a trip to Tor Ed as the COVID-19 cases and deaths in Allegheny County were a veritable roller coaster, as seen by this chart. It was approximately 5 months until we were able to visit the Tor Ed site.
So this was our first project that was set back due to COVID-19. Once the project site was visited on August 26, 2020, the design team determined what reclamation techniques would be best for various lengths of high wall. For areas with the most foot traffic, it was determined a more robust and aesthetically appealing design would be best. The soil nail wall system was selected in large part due to the associated top-down construction method that is more appropriate for the tight construction access between the existing structures at the top of the slope and the museum facility near the base of the high wall. Specific locations for geotechnical investigation were marked out in the field, and geotechnical investigation for soil nail wall design should generally obtain the following information: soil and rock stratigraphy, soil and rock engineering properties, including unit weights, shear strengths, orientation and spacing of bedding, and estimated nominal pull-out resistance, as well as groundwater elevations, and information that may assist in deducing and evaluating potential construction issues, such as difficulties of excavating the wall face and drilling the holes should also be retrieved as much as practically possible.
Now, right of entry documents and drawings were prepared in the late fall of 2020, and our real estate department had these documents signed prior to initiating any exploratory work on the site. Now, the signed right of entry documents cleared our legal review in March of 2021. Now, quote documents including drawings were prepared for soliciting of drilling contractors to drill and obtain core samples for the laboratory analyses. Now, other quote documents were prepared for soliciting of prices for laboratory analyses from laboratories. And we chose to solicit quotes rather than the normal bidding process because we felt it would be a quicker turnaround time and we would not automatically have to choose the low quote. These quote documents were sent out in July of 2021. We received 1 quote for laboratory analyses.
Hey, Mike, where are you going with that?
Flip the slide. No quote for you, meaning no quotes for, we received no quotes for drilling. Now, a second set of quote documents were sent out to other drillers, and by October of 2021, we received 3 sets of quotes. The delay in receiving a quote was a second setback due to COVID-19. We were left pondering the reason for this. Now, the immediate economic hit from the coronavirus pandemic was unfathomable. In April 2020 alone, nearly 21 million jobs were lost. Then in 2021, the economy experienced 2 historic surprises. First, demand for workers came soaring back at a velocity almost never seen before. And second, despite companies going all out to hire millions of workers, either retired early or stayed on the sidelines. Now, Tor Ed was also affected by this pandemic as visitors to the museum dropped well below the 3,000 mark. It has since rebounded up to over 12,000. Now, getting back to the 2 historic surprises, these 2 forces collided to create the most unusual job market in living memory, and also the economy afflicted by too few jobs, but also too few workers.
With the quotes received, a drilling contract was awarded and the drilling commenced in early March 2022. 6 borings were completed in the vicinity of their proposed retaining walls. Standard penetration testing with split spoon sampling was completed in overburden materials, and NQ wireline rock core sampling was completed in rock intervals in order to assess the general rock quality at the site. Additionally, 2 undisturbed Shelby tube samples were successfully collected within the selected overburden intervals. Selected soil samples were then submitted to the contracted accredited geotechnical laboratory for various analyses. Soils were analyzed for grain size distribution, moisture content, specific gravity, unit weight, shear strength properties by consolidated undrained triaxial compression testing and direct shear testing, and standard soil chemistry panels that include pH, sulfate, and chloride. Selected rock core samples were analyzed for unconfined compressive strength, modulus of elasticity, Poisson's ratio, specific gravity, and absorption. Furthermore, 2 fractured rock samples were analyzed for shear strength by direct shear testing along the planar rock discontinuity. Each of these tests provide useful information pertinent to various design elements, such as concrete specifications, requirements for epoxy coating on soil nails, and for other internal, external, and global stability calculations for the various proposed retaining wall structures. Review of the soil and rock samples and test results suggested that the rock materials in the vicinity of the high wall are of generally poorer quality than initially anticipated, and that joints and other fracture planes within the rock are anticipated to largely control the overall design strength parameters of the proposed soil nail wall system and overall nail lengths. Initial preliminary grading schemes that had been generated prior to completing the geotechnical borings and laboratory testing have also required revisions, including additional cut into the existing slope to better accommodate the observed subsurface conditions. This just goes to show the benefit of conducting quality geotechnical field studies and laboratory analyses, and even geophysical studies if available and appropriate, as early in the design process as possible. Another significant concern that has been identified at the site over the course of the last 2 years is stormwater. The existing site layout that includes various buildings and walkways tightly packed along the top of a 1-to-1 slope with a significant tributary drainage area presents challenging conditions that need to be addressed as part of the retaining wall constructions and to otherwise mitigate potential risk towards other existing structures at the site. Overall slope stability, including for retaining wall structures, is very sensitive to water issues. As such, the overall design has to incorporate new stormwater management facilities. Due to the site constraints, stormwater will be managed to the extent practical via detention on the upland side of the existing buildings. Stormwater will be routed to Class 5 stormwater injection wells that will be cased through the mined interval and beyond to appropriate depths. And that's just because it's generally not good to infiltrate a bunch of water right above where they're doing mine tours. That might not be a good thing. So even though infiltration would be an ideal scenario, just the fact that this geometry is right above where they do active tours, it makes more sense to just case this interval and inject into a deep injection well. And that the alternative would be to let the water just flow off of this 1-to-1 slope, which is not ideal because it impacts the retaining wall as well as the slope stability down here. Pre-treatment of injected stormwater runoff will be achieved by gravity flow through an amended soil media prior to collection in an underdrain pipe and discharge to the injection wells. Due to the complex nature of this project with respect to site geometry constraints and constructability considerations, along with stormwater concerns and slope stability concerns, the design process has necessitated an iterative method that currently is in its final stages. We are confident that the final design and construction will drastically improve the overall access to and enjoyment of the site, as well as the public safety.
Thank you very much for your time as we discussed the interesting and complex AMLER project, including the various ways that COVID-19 pandemic has influenced the design process. Now, I know in the previous slide I explained the meaning of COVID. I think there's another meaning that is valid. COVID, count on variance in design. Thank you.